Hi folks, welcome to Creative Making. My name's Pete and in this video I'm going to be sculpting a little alien. Well, after what seems like an absolute lifetime, I've finally managed to do a new video and it's just me sculpting a little alien thing. I'm not a sculptor, I enjoy it, but I'm not really a sculptor. I'm probably doing this all wrong, but it's the way I work and it's the way that works for me. So stick with me and I hope you enjoy the video. If you want to own this little alien, then I'm going to tell you how you can do that at the end of this video. Just one last thing, I've got new cameras and stuff and I'm not very good at reading instructions like most guys. So the focus goes a bit weird and the colours are a bit weird. So stick with me and they'll be better on the next video. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into making a little Super Sculpey alien.
Right, so here we go, sculpting a little alien. So this is what we've got to use today. And we've got a little board to put it on. We've also got a pair of glass eyes, although I'm not sure about those, might be too big. Some tin foil. Along with that, we've got some Super Sculpey. We've also got some cos clay, I may not use that. We've got some armature wire. We've got some bacon bond and some smoother, some sculpting tools. And then of course we've got the obligatory cup of coffee. So Super Sculpey, pretty standard stuff. I'm going to be colouring this later on, I'll show you how to do that. But this is what we're going to end up with. This is intrinsically coloured using flock and veining fibres. There's the colour originally. Two different types there. I'll show you how to do that in a bit. But let's get started. So first of all, we'll make our armature. It's pretty self-explanatory really. I'm just drilling a bunch of holes in the middle of this MDF plate that I got off eBay. And I'm just using some aluminium wire, which again from Amazon, I think this stuff. And before I go any further, I want to strengthen that and also straighten it out. And in order to do that, as you can see here, I end up putting it in my little drill and giving it a twist. As you can see, it straightens it out nicely. So I've done a couple of those. I'm not really sure what I'm going to sculpt in this. Got an idea, but I'm just going to make like a random little armature. So there they are in the holes. Don't bother with those other two holes. And I'm gluing this in with a little bit of ultraviolet UV resin. So I'm using this thinner wire here just to bind it all together, bind the thicker wire together, just to strengthen things up. You don't have to do that, but it helps. There we go. You can see I've bent the armature as well a little bit to give the final character a bit of shape. And then the next thing, just cover the whole thing in tin foil. You may be wondering why we cover it in tin foil. Well, it's just to bulk it out really. Also, if you've got a solid chunk of Super Sculpey, when you bake it in the oven, in order to bake it right into the middle, it's you're going to need a lot of time and a lot of heat, and the outside will probably burn. So if you do a bit of tin foil, it bulks it out, and it just means that when you bake it, it's going to bake right through to the foil. I'm going to start off using this ultralight Super Sculpey. I spelt subscribe wrong. What an idiot. Yeah, we're going to use some of this ultralight Super Sculpey, and it's just a normal polymer clay, but it's been made super light, I guess. And I use that to kind of give me a surface to sculpt on. This is still, I suppose, the armature. It's quite dry stuff, it won't stick on its own. So in order to combat that, I'll take some of this stuff, bacon bond, and we just daub it all over the foil. Essentially it's a polymer glue, probably just PVA, I don't know. Anyway, we paint that all over, put loads on, and then as you can see, the Sculpey Super Light sticks. We're just going to cover this whole thing in the super light stuff. Have a cup of tea while that's in the oven baking. And here we go, out the oven, so it's nice and hard. Put a hole in the end there to put a little bit of wire in for the head. There it is. I've just poked it in with a bit of the wire. So we're going to cover this now in some of that Super Sculpey normal. You see I put it in the... Yes, I know I spelled subscribe wrong. You see I put it through the pasta maker. That just kind of helps the Super Sculpey kind of soften. It's called conditioning. You'll see a lot of polymer clay sculptors doing that. If you don't do that, it just kills your knuckles trying to soften it up with your hands. Now this is just the bog standard Super Sculpey I'm putting on here, not that pre-coloured stuff. And you can see I'm just building up the basic forms here. I'm not going to go crazy adding skin texture or anything like that at this stage. This is kind of like the muscles, if you like. And then later on with that coloured stuff, I'll make a thin skin. So there you can see I'm building up the basic armature for the head. And it's always good to build an armature because if you've never sculpted before, with any clay really, if you don't have an armature you end up battling yourself all the time. So an armature is like a skeleton, it just helps it stay sort of semi-rigid. So this isn't texturing, this is just kind of me adding little worms and just building up the basic forms. Okay, so that's it finished. You can see I've put some armature wire up in the top of the head there. This is also baked, as you can see. This armature wire here, this is going to be for eye stalks. Now these are the eyes that I originally talked about earlier on. I think they're a bit big and I don't like the slit pupil. So I've got these little smaller ones. There you go, see a size comparison. Also like the red, it kind of reminds me of Henson's early days. I've also got some even smaller ones of those. I don't put the smaller ones there, but you'll see where I put them in a minute. Okay, so we're still roughing out this underform here, adding little bits more clay, just to try and key in some of that primary forms, I suppose you could call it. Keep adding that in to try and get the shape that I'm happy with. So this clay here is the pre-coloured stuff. I'm going to do another video on pre-colouring that, so it's pretty simple, but essentially you just put flock into it and run it through the pasta maker, but I'll do a short video explaining all that. Now here we go, we're going to start putting this on. This is really thin. You can see I'm pushing that in with a sponge. I'd covered that whole thing in that pre-coloured Sculpey and pushed it in with a sponge. I just don't want to get any air gaps underneath because you'll see later on it does form little cracks when you bake it. Sorry about the out of focusness of this shot, new camera and all that lot. But I'm just playing about with texture and with some secondary forms there. You can see I've put that coloured clay up to the top of the neck. So here I'm obviously fleshing out those eye stalks, and I played about with that a little bit longer and stuck some eyes in, and then so obviously I forgot to press record on this here new camera. But you can see that I've got quite a bit further forward with this. I've put the bigger eyes on the big eye stalk. You can see I've got the smaller eyes there. I'm not 100% sure about those. So for the teeth, I'm just using Super Sculpey translucent. I'm just going to put those in there, smooth it out, and then later on I actually pigmented a little tiny bit of Sculpey and I use that for the gums. There we go, look, just a tiny little bit of Sculpey. Still not sure about those little eyes in the top there. I was umming and ahhing looking at it. I'm not sure about these little eyes. These are kind of doing my head in. So I've decided I'm going to chop the little ones off, keep the long ones, but I'll chop the little ones off and we'll see what else we can do instead. Pretty gory, so we've had to censor this little bit. Okay, so the little eyes are off and I'm just going to fill in the holes. You can see that's where the little bit of wire is. Yes, I'm filling in the little holes. Sorry about the focus. I must read the instructions on that new camera. And then I start to think about texturing it, and I'm just going to put loads and loads of little bubbles all over the surface. I've kind of had a thought about this character while I've been messing about with those little eyes. I think I'm going to make it into some kind of sluggy, swampy thing. Maybe something that could live in Dagobah. I don't know. So I'm going to put tentacles on, so let's have an armature in there. I only show one, but I actually obviously do both. I'm just notching that up so the Sculpey sticks to it. And in we go. Now on these, I actually sculpted most of these as normal Sculpey. Cosclay at the bottom didn't really work. You can see the line there. My thoughts were that the Cosclay, once it's baked, because it's flexible, it's less likely to get snapped off. But anyway, nevertheless, I quite like the design of this. I mean, it's not designed, it's just me putting it together, but I quite like the overall look. I think it balances well, so let's go ahead with this. Stick loads of warts all over it. Some sort of warty, aquatic, Dagobah alien. Maybe goes for a pint with Yoda. Okay, so I'm happy with the overall look. I'm going to start texturing this. Now these tools that you can see me using, these are the most amazing, beautiful tools, handmade. They come from a company called the Old Monstrosity Shop. You can find those on Etsy, the Old Monstrosity Shop. So there we go, basic texture all over. Now I know I'm going to do some stuff on the back, but I still wanted the texture on there. And you can see there I've taken the Cosclay off because I wasn't happy with the transition of the colour actually, and it's a lot softer than Super Sculpey. I will do something, maybe do a little stop motion puppet with it. Okay, so there we go. So it's baked, it's hard, those have gone. You can see the teeth are all baked. Here you can see a little crack in the Super Sculpey, and that's because there was air bubbles underneath. So I'm going to extend those, I'm going to clean it all up, and I'm going to do some stuff on the back. Blip, 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 blip. So I envisage these as being little egg sacs. There's those toads, isn't there, that have eggs on the back that'll leach through. But anyway, you can see I've covered the back in Bacon Bond, and I've covered it also in these little warts and pendulous things, and now I'm just kind of giving it a general clean up before I give it its final bake. Also at this point I extended those front tentacle things. And there we are. I mean, It's not brilliant, is it? To be fair, I could spend a lot more time on it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and bake this anyway, and we're ready to paint. So for painting, I'm using mostly acrylics, in fact all acrylics, and I've got a set of these Team GORE Bloodline colours. They're amazing, very, very cool. If you can afford them, buy them. I'm also going to use these game colours by Vallejo, a whole mixture of acrylic mediums. And these guys, the FW inks from De La Rowney, they're brilliant. This one's my favourite colour, Antelope Brown. Use it for everything. This one also, it's a Rose Adjuster. It's actually a makeup, but it's fantastic for colouring stuff. And obviously airbrush cleaner. Bit of isopropyl alcohol, bit of water, and we're ready to rock. I could explain what I'm doing here, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But first thing I need to do is mask off the teeth and the eyes. I don't have latex. Normally I would use latex, but so I've got frog tape. Be a nightmare to use. But I'm going to go for blue tack. First of all, first thing I do, I've got my extraction there. I'm also wearing a respirator, and the first thing I do is I'll use my Iwata HPC with a moisture trap, and I'll use some of this AK Ultra Matte Varnish, and I'm just going to give the whole thing a coat. Doesn't matter if I get it on the eyes because they're glass eyes, so I can scrape that off, but I'll just give the whole thing kind of like a primer, but a clear primer. You can see the colour difference on these two cameras that I'm using here actually. This colour is the one, this one is too bright. Again, I need to learn how to use my equipment, but you'll see later on the colours really pop on this shot. Don't look that realistic. But these colours on this shot, they look a lot more realistic. So give it its prime, and then I'm just going to let that dry and it'll go matte. So there you go, I've got the eyes and the teeth masked now because I'm going to go in with colour. And the first colour I'm going in with is a little bit of red. You'll probably wonder why I'm doing lots of these kind of base coats. The truth be known is I'm actually making these up. Oh yeah, you can see the colour's terrible there. That's actually what it's more like. Yeah, the truth be known is that I'm actually not entirely sure where I want to go with colours on this. I want it to be this kind of swampy thing, but I'm thinking, do I go fleshy? Well, we'll see how it goes. Okay, a bit of blue, and this blue kind of adds a little bit of translucency to it. You'll see often around old people, their eyelids and that have got like this kind of really subtle blue, and it adds that translucency. But yeah, it adds a little bit of translucency here and there, so you can see in a second what that looks like. I've also added a bit of yellow there. But yeah, that blue above the mandibles. I think it's about this sort of time that I've realised where I want to go with the colours. Because I want it to be a swampy thing, I'm going to go for swampy colours. So I'm going to go for greens and browns and that kind of thing. We'll keep the front of him still pale. I suppose if you look at things like frogs and turtles and that, they're dark on the back and pale on the front. But yeah, we'll go for greens. So I've just started to blast over a load of green here. This particular one is Fern Green. It's an FW ink, and I've just diluted it a little bit with some alcohol because I didn't have much left. You can see it's a bit blotchy, but that's fine because as it dries, it'll dry more even. So this is just like a basic undercoat, I suppose. And also I wanted to dial the green in slowly and build it up. as I was going, I kept forgetting to press the button, but you can see it's got a lot darker there. And I'm just using a little speckle technique to give it kind of all those little blobs. And I just keep working around the whole thing. I add some browns and some darker greens. As I say, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see where I'm going. Just mask off the back there, do some stuff on those tentacles. Are they tentacles? They might be breathing holes. I figure those little slots behind the eye stalks are ears. There you go, a few more browns and stuff like that. Bit of yellow on the egg sacs. In hindsight, I should have probably done those out of the Sculpey translucent stuff. They look like grapes. And then we're pretty much there. I mean, once this stuff is set, it all goes matte. And I don't really like it matte, so I end up doing all of this and then I'll give it a real good gloss. But you can see it's matte. It's different kind of specularity, whatever you want to call it. So I'll cover the whole thing in a gloss acrylic medium. It looks way too glossy there, but it does, as it dries, it actually dries down to more of a satin finish, which is quite nice for skin. I quite like the green and red around the back of the ears there, kind of appley colours. So once that's dried up, you get more of a satin thing, which is more natural, looks better. And then the final thing that I'll do here is I'll take the masking off the eyes and the teeth, and here I'm just giving the teeth a bit of a gloss with some UV resin. And you see that satin finish to it? It's more natural than that matte finish. Go blast it with UV, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I paint the base, I paint it black with that black 3.0 stuff, and that's pretty much it. So let's have a look at the beauty shots.
Okay, there we go, all finished. I hope you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making the video. Thanks very much for sticking around to the end. And yeah, as I said at the beginning, if you want to take this little guy home with you, then you can do that just by reading the notes below, and it'll explain how to do it. And you could have a little weird alien sluggy thing. Alright, thanks guys, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, send me any comments you want below this video, and I'll get straight back to you. Thanks very much, see you soon, bye!